Rivals 2 has been out for about a month now, giving players tons of time to get familiar with their characters. But some players, myself included, have been struggling to figure out what stages they should ban or take opponents to. To answer my burning questions, I reached out to high-level representatives of each character to figure out their thought processes when banning and picking stages. Before we get started, there's a few general details we should get out of the way. There are two kinds of stages, starters and counter picks. I'll be talking about both in this video when discussing characters' best and worst stages, but I'll be sure to highlight each fighter's best starter, so you know where to or where to not start against them. I'll also be making a color-coded stage select graphic that you can screenshot at the end of each fighter's section, so if you need to reference that information before a set, you'll have it on demand. Really quickly before we get started, I'm going to touch on what makes each stage unique. If you're already familiar with all the stages, feel free to skip around with the timestamps. For our starters, Hodojo and Godai Delta are a classic triplat and biplat. Both of them have pretty standard blast zones and stage lanes, making them great neutral stages that favor characters who prefer to scrap and use platforms for extensions. This describes most of the cast, however, which makes them great neutral stages. Speaking of neutral stages, Julesville also feels pretty fair for most of the roster, but the moving platform allows some characters to get cheeky extensions off stage to steal a stock a little faster. Ethereum Forest is our smallest stage in the starter section, making it great for fighters who want to rush down opponents. Its swinging platform being notably smaller than Julesville platform means that the stage is best used by characters who prefer to stay grounded or don't need to access a platform to extend their combos. Merchant Port is the largest starter, making it strong for characters who need more space. The platform layout, however, enables characters who have up airs that poke opponents to juggle them, like Ranno or Clairen. For our counter picks, Fire Capital is pretty similar to Merchant Port with an inverted plat layout. The stage is super long, and the taller platforms being harder to access for combos means zoners feel pretty comfy here and shouldn't get threatened too hard by juggles like they would on Merchant Port. Aramata is also a pretty lengthy stage. Its moving platform helps characters who like platform extensions, but don't rely on them for every confirm. The lack of a wall also means that characters that need to access it to recover are forced to go high, making them a little bit riskier to play here. Hyperborean Harbor is similar, with having a unique wall. This long stage's wall gets tucked in just a little bit, but fighters can recover through the stage if they're close to it. The length of the plat layout is perfect for zoners, but the top blast zone being the shortest in the game means that characters that kill off the top excel here. Speaking of short blast zones, Rockwall has one of the shortest side blast zones in the game. It's not too long, meaning that rushdown characters with the ability to hit opponents horizontally feel super strong here. The plat layout reminds me a little bit of WarioWare, with a bit more thought put into it. Our last stage is Tempest Peak. This is our shortest counter pick. The biplat layout rotates, with platforms being higher or lower based on the clock. Characters will need to have a good poke tool to do well here, or they might get left behind. From my research, most players didn't have this stage listed as their main's favorite, so you might want to only pick it if the matchup's worse for your opponent than it is for you on the stage. With that all out of the way, let's start with the fire characters. Zetterburn is an all-rounder brawler, who's strong on most stages. His up strong is his most consistent kill option, meaning the stage's low ceilings can help him squeak out early kills. His lack of range means the more narrow the stage is, the better. All the starters are at least pretty okay for him. However, Merchant Port being a bit lengthy means it's not the best for him in matchups where characters can outrange or outpoke him. Treetops, Hodojo, and Godai are all really strong for him to start on. However, Hodojo isn't great for him to take characters like Kragg or Loxodont to, since their huge moves cover the platform super well. As far as counterpicks go, Zetterburn really hates Aramata, since he can't hug the wall for his recovery. Hyperborean Harbor is also risky, since the wall is far inside the stage, but his upstrong killing so early here makes it really strong if you're confident in your recovery routes. Overall, since Zetterburn does have a bit of everything, he's able to avoid big stages comfortably versus zoners, while also being able to avoid small stages versus heavies and less mobile characters, without giving up core parts of his kit. This allows him to pick and ban stages based on his opponent's wants, and worry less about his own. But that does come with the disadvantage of him not being phenomenal on any one particular stage across all the matchups, besides Hyperborean Harbor. Let's hop over to Zetterburn's brother, Forsburn. Forsburn likes all the starters, similar to Zetterburn. Shorter stages aren't too scary for him, since his cape and his clone allow him to keep opponents at bay and neutral. However, Longer stages allow him to play a lot campier and force opponents to approach him in his smoke. For starters, Forsburn loves Ethereum Forest, since the lack of a consistent platform forces opponents to play more grounded, meaning he doesn't need to cover the platform in his smoke, and his massive F-Strong covers tons of the grounded range. Godai and Hodojo are also solid for him if he finds he needs a bit more room to play the matchup with. Since his air-to-air trains are super strong with up air and forward air, refreshing them with a plat extension is wonderful on these stages. Rockwall is also a great pick for him, since it's just long enough for him to camp, and has a non-centralizing platform layout, meaning that opponents do have to approach him on the ground. The small side blast zones allow him to access kills much earlier with his back air, and empowered down special. Forsburn's least favorite stages depend on the matchup, however his recovery being a little limited due to distance means stages like Hyperborean Harbor and Air Armada are super inconsistent for him. Forsburn's great-granddaughter, or something, I'm not too caught up on the lore, is Clairen. Clairen's big sword means she's great at forcing opponents to land on platforms, and then comboing them by covering all their get-up options from there. This means any of the starters with accessible platforms are great for her, so if you can, pick Hodojo or Godai Delta as her. But Merchant Port and Jewelsville are also okay for her. Ethereum Forest also isn't terrible for her, but it's probably her least favorite of the starters in most matchups. Counterpick-wise, Clairen loves Rockwall, since the short side blast zones let her get her tipper kills super early with forward air and F-Strong. Since a lot of characters like this stage though, you do have to be a bit more thoughtful when choosing it as her. If you're looking for another counterpick to take opponents to, Tempest Peak feels perfect for her, since she has some of the best poke tools in the game, allowing her to threaten opponents no matter where the platform they're on is positioned. Clairen's not a huge fan of Hyperborean Harbor or Air Armada, due to her lack of recovery, but in matchups where the opponent also has a weaker recovery, Hyperborean Harbor isn't the worst for her, since her kill power off the top is so strong. Hey there, really quickly hopping in here, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and subscribe. Only 4% of my viewers are actually subbed, which feels pretty low. I'm a small grassroots tournament organizer and have lots of sick content planned. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of November, so it'd mean the world if he helped me out. Lastly, in the fire category, we have Clairen's best friend, Loxodont. As I said, I'm not too caught up on the lore, so let me know if I'm wrong with that one. Loxodont's huge axe means he likes stages where he can force tech chases on platforms, and then easily cover the opponent's get-up option. He loves Jewelsville and Hodojo as starters, since his massive moves make him one of the best characters at taking early stocks off the moving platform. Ethereum Forest is also great for him too, since its short length means he doesn't have to jog quite as far. Counterpick-wise, Loxodont enjoys Rockwall, but it's not a must-pick for him, since he can get zoned out ever so slightly. Tempest Peak is super strong for him for the same reasons as Clairen, but also for the fact that it's one of the shorter stages, which heavies always enjoy. Loxodont doesn't really love Air Armada, since he really needs the wall to recover, probably more than anyone else. So it should be an auto ban if you're a Lox player in most matchups. Hyperborean Harbor can also give him trouble, but the plat layout's really nice for his huge axe, so it's up to you as a player to make the risk-reward decision. Everywhere else feels pretty neutral for him, since he can get walled out on some stages like Fire Capital, however its plat layout lets you get huge extensions, so it's also kinda up to you. Rolling over to our Earth friends, let's start with Kragg. Kragg loves platforms to have both give him combo extensions, since he can refresh his jump by landing on them mid-combo, and because his massive moves allow him to tech chase opponents easily. This means that Hodojo, out of all the starters, is best for him. However, they're all more or less decent for him, depending on the matchup. Counterpick-wise, Kragg loves Air Armada, since the tall top blast zone extends his lifespan a pretty hefty amount. And the wall being non-existent isn't too much of an issue for him, since he brings his own. Speaking of weird walls, Hyperborean Harbor is Kragg's best stage, since he doesn't have to use the freaky wall to recover, but he can get great movement options out of it and sharking techniques. As far as stages go, Kragg doesn't like longer stages like Merchant Port and Fire Capital. However, his approach options being limited don't mean that they're always bad for him, it just kinda depends on what the opponent's bringing to the matchup. After Kragg, we have Maypul. Maypul being super fast and loving her long juggle combos, as well as her offstage chases with forward air and nair, means she's pretty flexible when it comes to picking stages. I find Hodojo and Merchant Port to be great for her, since the top platform of each of them can make a combo that would normally do lots of damage magically turn into a combo that suddenly kills. None of the starters are bad for her, but Forest and Julesville both seem to be a bit scary against fighters who can outpoke her on the ground, or that can take advantage of the moving platform better than her. For counterpicks, Maypul really likes Rockwall, since her neutral art can connect into itself offstage pretty similar to, spoiler alert, Fleet, allowing her to kill at nasty percents. None of the counterpicks feel too bad for her, however, since she can always recover with the tether and ignore the wall. Her normal recovery is pretty bad, so going to stages like Aramata and Hyperborean Harbor is risky for sure, but I think the risk is justifiable if you're forcing your opponents into worse spots than you could be put into. Since that wraps up our Earth category, let's dive into our Water fighters. Ranno has pretty similar stage picks to Maypul. His fast airspeed and great juggle game means he loves stages that allow him to extend his aerial juggles. Merchant Port and Hodojo's high platforms work great for this, but Godai is solid for him when those get banned. Ethereum Forest can feel a bit rocky for him, since he has much less room to work with there, and the platform isn't always there to help him out. As far as counterpicks go, Hyperborean Harbor feels great for him, since the layout lets him needle camp, juggle, and extend combos on the platform, and get early kills off the top as well. Rockwall also feels super strong, since his forward strong 50-50 out of grab and forward arrow to down tilt can kill at crazy percents. Everyone's favorite whale dog Orcane is up next. Orcane's normally seen as a bit more campy of a character, meaning that Merchant Port should be super awesome for him. However, in matchups where he's outpoked, it can feel a little tricky, so I'd only pick it in places where the opponent doesn't outrange you, or can't take too much of an advantage from the top platforms. Ethereum Forest feels awesome for him, since his grounded gameplay is some of the best in the game, and the inconsistent platform means your opponent will be forced to walk over your puddle, or land awkwardly on you with an aerial. This also enables his grounded check chases, which leave the opponents little places to go if they do get caught in a combo here. The other starters are all fine for him, but based on the matchup, some can feel a bit riskier than others. For counterpicks, Orcane loves Fire Capital for its long length and exceptional plat layout for his combos, as well as Hyperborean Harbor since he doesn't need the wall, and his up air kills super early. I don't think Aramata is necessarily incredible for him, but so many characters feel unfunctional on it that taking them there is never a bad option. Up next is Wrastor. Wrastor loves getting in close to his opponent and juggling them, meaning that long stages with hard to access platforms don't suit him well. Hodojo and Godai having consistent platforms make them his go-to starters, but the short length of Forest can mean he can close gaps a little bit easier in matchups where he'd be rather kept out. Julesville is also solid for him, since getting a grab on the moving platform opens tons of combo routes for him based on where it's at, applying a multi-layered knowledge check to opponents to DI right or lose a stock early. Hyperborean Harbor is a solid counterpick for him, since his up strong off the top feels really powerful and gimping opponents with his down strong is always solid. However, this stage might be better for characters like Kragg, so it might just be best to take characters that don't do good there to it, instead of a character like Kragg and try to gimp him, since he'll probably gimp you instead. Tempest Peak can also enable his big combos, especially when fighting characters that might feel a little less potent when using the stage's asymmetrical layout, or top platforms. For our last fighter, we have Fleet. Fleet really likes to start on Julesville, but based on the matchup, her flexible kit allows all the starters to feel pickable. In matchups where the opponent really wants to juggle you, banning Godai and Hodojo might be for the best, and in matchups where Fleet gets camped, banning Merchant Port feels right. As far as counterpicks go, Fleet loves Fire Capital. Its long length allows her to set the pace of the game, as well as the accessible center stage, extending her combos. If you're paying close attention, you might have realized I didn't really highlight Merchant Port as being one of her better stages, which is due to her up throw placing opponents on the central platforms, allowing them to tech out of your juggles and combos. Rockwall can also feel strong for her, but is not so notably strong for her like it might be for other characters, so being selective about when you pick this stage is probably your best bet. Tempest Peak does feel notably bad for Fleet, since her arrows can easily cover the platforms, but her movement on the stage does feel a bit lacking compared to other characters like Clairen, who love the stage a ton. That just about wraps up our stage striking guide. Did I get your main's best stages right, or was I wrong? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, don't forget to leave a sub to help us reach our 1K subscriber goal. I know it doesn't seem like you're doing a ton, but hitting 1K would allow us to monetize the channel and earn revenue from the ads you've already seen, helping us add more prizing to our events. Thanks for watching this far, and if you want to watch more, you're in luck. We have a playlist full of competitive rivals guides that we're updating about every week, and a Discord server where we run free weekly tournaments online. The link's in the description. Until next time, peace.